By the way, she's hot. I like her.
And she wants that little teenage dick too. Let's be honest. Hello everyone and welcome to Anime Club After Dark's Movie Reviews, a spoiler-free discussion detailing the good, the bad, and the downright ridiculous of anime movies. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and I am joined tonight by our poser extraordinaire, Natai.
I feel like parkouring right now so hard.
Parkour, motherfucker!
I do parkour!
And that is part of the reason that Natai and I have decided to join you all tonight, because he and I are going to be reviewing the very recently released anime movie Bubble. So it is another one of our wonderful spoiler-free movie reviews. This time we are doing Bubble, which released back in in April of 2022 on Netflix worldwide.
Which is really weird. Sorry to cut you off. It's just really weird because I know that Netflix released on April 1st another movie called The Bubble. So I don't know what they were thinking with that.
Yeah, I know that was really weird. I'm sure it's kind of a coincidence, but yeah, there are two movies that were two Netflix quote unquote Netflix original movies released in April that both had Bubble in the title. One was just called Bubble, which is what we're reviewing tonight. The other one's called The Bubble, which apparently sucked.
I'm from every marketing thing I saw of it, I'm not surprised.
But let's actually get into some of the nitty gritty of what this is and who was responsible for it. So this movie, there were a lot of heavy hitters in the anime industry that were brought in to make this movie. First off, the movie itself was directed by Tetsuro Araki, who is a name you probably recognize if you've ever watched Death Note, High School of the Dead, or the first 3 seasons of Attack on Titan when it was at Studio Wit, because he directed all of those. It certainly has a flair for highly dramatic and, shall we say, stylized action sequences.
Araki, like, his style is very much like, he knows how to build, like, these big moments that feel bigger than anything you've ever seen. Like, for God's sake, he made a high school student eating chips, like, the most epic thing you've ever seen, right? So
I know, right?
So, like, yeah, that's the guy for, like, a big event, like, you know,
making the mundane very dramatic.
Yeah, quote-unquote blockbuster movies, I guess.
And also, let's not forget, directed High School of the Dead, he gave us the greatest bullet time shot ever.
Man, those physics were something else.
Those boob physics, man, ain't got shit on Dead or Alive. What are you talking about?
High School of the Dead or Alive, sorry.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, the movie itself was a collaborative effort in the writing department between a heavyweight Gen Urobuchi, who you probably know from Fate Zero, Madoka Magica, Psycho Pass, and a number of other things. Naoko Sato, who from what I can tell is far more involved in video game production than anime production, and Renji Oki, who, as far as both myself and Natai can determine, has never written anything in the anime space before.
I don't know. It's funny because, like, the big hoo-ha of, like, this movie before it came out, like, the big marketing push was, it's directed by Tetsuro Araki, it's written by Gen Urobuchi, and, like, it never, like, I never noticed, like, I don't think in the marketing it ever, like, talked about, like, more than one writer. So when I started watching the movie, they listed 3 different writers. I was like, excuse me?
Yeah, when I first saw that, I thought, well, maybe this was originally these other 2 people's idea as a collaborative effort, and Gen Urobuchi was the one who adapted their idea into, like, a screenplay for the anime, which I could see happening. But apparently that's not the case, or at least if it is, I can't find evidence of it. But yeah, it was a collaborative effort, which is unusual for Gen Urobuchi. He is typically a solo worker. The anime movie itself was produced by Wit Studio, obviously known for Attack on Titan, more recently known for Ranking of Kings, which is absolutely phenomenal if you haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
And so when was this released? So this film, as we mentioned, was released worldwide on Netflix on April 28th, 2022. However, it did have an early screening at the Berlin International Film Festival back in February 10th. And then it was released theatrically in Japan on May 13th, 2022. I tried as hard as I could to find any kind of information about the budget it cost to make this movie. I could not find any. All the original sources that I usually use to find this stuff did not list any for this particular movie, so it may be a while before we get any kind of information on the budget, but just as of the time of recording this, I couldn't find any information. And as of the time of recording this, in fact, specifically as of June 2nd, 2022, in Japan at least, with its theatrical release, it has made $509,309 at the Japanese box office.
Yeah, and we don't really know if it was successful or wasn't as far as the next.
I have to imagine it cost way more than that to make it.
I mean, I haven't seen any headline of Bubble is the most watched film on Netflix for like the past month. Like, I haven't seen anything like that, so I don't know.
And last but not least, before we get into talking about the art and animation, the film itself has a total runtime of 100 minutes. So it's not that long, just over an hour and a half.
Yeah, it goes by pretty quickly.
It does. So let's actually talk about the art and animation, which I think personally, and feel free to disagree with me if you do, this is where the movie shines. Like it's a feast for the eyes, like especially the background art.
Yeah, it's very, very colorful. Like a lot, like it pops. It really pops. It just looks great. I love the like the vistas we see of like this sort of this dystopian Tokyo, like just falling apart, just covered by the ocean. It looks great. It looks really, really good.
And that's also something to point out, like the whole premise of the story, which we'll get into, does revolve around a dystopia, sort of a natural disaster of sorts, where Tokyo itself, or most of Tokyo, is pretty much completely flooded, and the background art does a really good job of showing like the decay and the structural damage of what being engulfed in water would do to a lot of buildings over time. And I got to give props to the water animation in particular. Like it's absolutely gorgeous.
I mean, the water looks good, but that parkour animation is what steals the show.
Yeah, that is very true. And you're introduced to it very, very early on in the movie. In fact, within the first 10 minutes, you're just dumped right into the very first parkour scene.
I mean,
and like
battle
fluidity.
core.
The fluidity of the character movements is like just absolutely gorgeous.
Oh yeah, it's like.
And you mentioned it before we started recording that the cinematography of those action sequences, very reminiscent of what was done in Attack on Titan, right? So in Attack on Titan, you have the scenes where they're like, flying through the trees with the 3D movement gear, right?
Yeah.
And the camera, the quote-unquote camera, or the view of the audience is like always moving around, and sometimes you get these panning shots or these, twisting shots or whatever it happens to be, that you feel like there's an actual camera in the scene recording this with Attack on Titan.
Like
very similar to how the parkour scenes are done in Bubble.
Yeah, the 3D camera movements combined with the 2D animation, it just really, really reminded me of those early seasons of Attack on Titan, because like it's very exciting. It's like the momentum of the animation, just like it's out of this world. It looks great. It feels very great. Like, and I love the choreography. I love how we'll get to the characters, but I do like how each character's animation sort of reflects their personality to some extent. They're very distinct in how they go about running around the environment, and it looks fantastic. It really does.
Yeah. It does seem like the way that the characters move really suits like their actual design, because obviously not every character is designed the same. They have different body types, and like the ones that are taller and are built bigger seem to actually have weight to their steps.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's kind of a subtle thing, but it works really, really well. And also you mentioned it, like the the 3D camera movement is done really in a 2D space. I'm not gonna say that there's no 3D CG in this movie, because there is. But the scenes where you actually have that 3D camera movement around the 2D characters and animation, it actually works really well. And it's something I think Wit is generally good at. They did it really well in Attack on Titan, and they've done it pretty well in some other things. Like, as much as we should on something like Cabaneri for its lacking story, like its camera work is still really good. And it's something that Wit has just become really, really good at.
Yeah, like absolutely, like talented people working there, and it shows. This movie looks terrific.
Yeah. And something else that I think plays into what I want to talk about next, and also plays into the cinematography, is during those action sequences, the parkour scenes, the movement of the characters really does sync up very, very well to the music that you're hearing.
Which is composed by...
well, if you've ever watched Attack on Titan, you've heard his music before too. It's Hiroyuki Sawano, who has scored Attack on Titan, Aldnoah Zero, Promare. Most recently, he did 86, which all of these have absolutely fantastic soundtracks. Kill la Kill, yeah. I mean, the man is like the go-to. Like, if you want a big, bombastic, emotional soundtrack, this is the guy you hire. And it shows. Like the music in this, like, fucking turn that shit up to 11 and just leave it on repeat.
Yeah, I love the soundtrack. I love how it's there's like this main theme that keeps coming back. It's like sort of like humming type of song. And it's like it's great and it's beautiful. And I love how it's sort of like when a more aggressive and somewhat evil force is introduced to the movie. I love how that theme is sort of like turned on its head. And he's used like appropriately so, and I like it. It's a really, like, I don't know if it's his best soundtrack, but it's pretty good.
I wouldn't say it's his best soundtrack, but it's certainly up there. Did you notice that you're talking about the repeating theme that you hear throughout the movie?
Yeah.
Did you happen to notice where that was sourced from?
Where was that sourced from? What do you mean?
How many anime have you ever watched in your life that take place in a high school?
All of them.
You've heard that sound before, then.
Is that the bell?
It is the bell.
Really?
It's exactly where it's sourced from.
I did not Oh, I never realized. I didn't realize that.
That's exactly where it's. We actually, so when I watched this, we actually had a watch party in our Discord server for this movie, and that's where I watched it. And I mentioned this to the people that were watching. It's like, isn't that just the school bell from like every high school anime ever? And everyone's like, yeah.
Huh.
I'm surprised you didn't notice that.
I don't know. I was like, I'm gonna have to go back and check, but I don't know. Didn't make that connection. I mean, it makes sense. Again, like the character who hums it like has this like sort of sailor like middle school sort of outfit to her. So
yeah. Something else to bring up is that this movie has an OP, and it's pretty good.
I mean, the song is great. I love Eve. I am happy like more people are like they get more exposure thanks to these projects like this one and Jujutsu Kaisen. They're great. They're awesome. In terms of like the animation, it's fine. Like a lot, like while watching it, like there's some bits in it I was like, is that like just footage for the movie? And I was right. So that kind of like, to me, it sort of takes away from a good OP. It's fine. Like,
what do you think about? Because this isn't unique in movies. Like Your Name, for example, does have an OP of sorts as well. What do you think?
Fantastic OP.
What do you think of like anime movies that have these series style OPs in them near the beginning?
I like them. I don't know, like just like a good OP for a show. If there's like a good OP to a movie, I like it. Then I don't know. It's like I get
regardless of the animation.
I give that
it certainly helps
up.
when the music is good.
Yeah. Again, like I go back, like I mentioned before we started recording, but like Your Name has a fantastic OP, which has a great song by Rad Williams, and like the animation is great, and it has a lot of like foreshadowings and like things that like set up moments in the movie that you don't pick up on first time when you watch it, but when you go back, you're like, you realize the foreshadowing, you know?
Yeah,
like a good OP.
Yeah, and just don't give the whole thing away though.
Yeah.
It's something that OPs in general have a very difficult time not doing. So let's actually talk about the story, since we've mentioned it a couple of times. I think the story can be summed up in one word, three words: parkour motherfucker.
Yeah, so pretty much a big bubble dropped in Tokyo, and
Yeah. So I wanted to ask about that. So at the beginning of the movie, it was my first like red flag with the narrative, is that there's this giant like lore dump, for lack of a better term, where you just have someone talking about things that happened and off screen, and like you just kind of have to take it at face value. And like I get it. You don't want to spend an enormous amount of time setting up the world, and because you'd rather show rather than tell. But do you have to just dump it all at the beginning?
I mean, it's kind of like, it's not the most elegant like exposition dump I've ever seen. It's fine, it's there. It's just, the thing is, it just raises more questions about like, so like you have this like setup of like, okay, so these bubbles showed up of nowhere, and slowly they like sort of trap Tokyo in this bigger bubble, and like there was this explosion, and Tokyo is like pretty much just like drowned in the sea of bubbles. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And then they mention things like, oh, like kids ran away to hide in this city, and it's like there's so many questions like, why, where are the police? What about the outside world? Why don't people just leave?
Moshi police desk?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, there's a lot. It raises a lot of questions. It's not the most tight world building I've ever seen.
No, it's not. I do like the general premise, though. So something happens that isolates a large city like Tokyo from the rest of the world. It kills a lot of people, and it renders a bunch of children as orphans, right?
Yeah.
And so the orphans come back to the place to kind of live there because they have nowhere else to go. And they start to build their own little society. Like, that idea, I actually kind of like. I just wish they'd gone in a much better direction than they did with Bubble.
Like, so, what was her name? Makoto? I don't remember the name of the glasses girl, right? Who's
Makoto, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, by the way, she's hot. I like her.
And she wants that little teenage dick, too, let's be honest.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway. So, like, there is a moment when she talks about, like, how one of the kids is being, like, reckless, and she's like, don't make me contact HQ and let them know about this, or they'll, like, evict all of you. And I'm like, wait, what? And they never develop that. They never go back and, like, develop all of that. I'm like,
let's be honest, that's not the only thing they ever do that with. Like, there's a lot of ideas that are brought up and they're mentioned as sort of like kind of big ideas, and then they never develop them. Great example is like they have throughout the city of Tokyo, while they're doing these parkour events, there are these like random gravity anomalies that pop up, and they never explain them. They like to say it's a big deal, you shouldn't get near them, you shouldn't touch them, and then they never expand on where they came from, how they work.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really, really weird. I don't know.
I don't know. It's just like, if you have questions about the story, don't want answers.
It's very strange. Like, it doesn't, like, the movie doesn't try to, like, explain its world all that much, how it works, and, like, I don't know. It's very, very strange.
Which is, again, weird coming from... It's weird coming from Gen Urobuchi, who is someone who is known for world building.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and I think it's weird. Like, the movie has a lot of things. It's like to just, like be all about, ooh, look at this, look at these themes. Like, there's, like, a parallel in this movie to The Little Mermaid. And it's, like, it's very kind of surface level, like the sort of comparison between them, and I'm like, it doesn't do anything drastically interesting with it, you know? It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it is. Like, I feel like they only put the whole Little Mermaid thing in there. It's like, hey, we're surrounded by water, people fall in, they can swim, there's someone who wants to be more than they are. Yeah, Little Mermaid, motherfucker.
Like, I don't know, it's just like, the setup is like this dystopian sort of Tokyo that we see throughout this movie, and like the sort of, and so the big, let's say, shtick of the movie they introduce is like how this like society operates is through what they call battle core or battle parkour, which if like honestly, that's like the best thing about the movie. I love that. I'm kind of surprised that I haven't seen a whole lot of like parkour focused. I remember it was what was it, Princess
Prince of
Stride?
Stride.
Yeah, I don't know if it was any good.
See, I feel like what they should have done is even just take out all the fucking like mystical magical bullshit and just give us parkour in a dystopian destroyed city. I feel like that could work.
I mean, I don't know. That's the thing about it because like the parkour is great, and we mentioned the animation is fantastic, but like you get a lot of very creative like way these characters traverse this dystopian world, and like you have like the main character is like so good at it, can jump over these like floaty bubbles, and it looks fantastic. It's like really exhilarating. It's great. I love these moments, but yeah, it's just strange that they don't develop like a whole lot more with the world around them, and I don't know.
Speaking of the main character, however, a good chunk of the story does revolve around the main character Hibiki and the main female character of Uta, who is like the bubble girl.
Pretty much bubble girl.
She's literally just a bubble girl. And like a good chunk of it is them like teaching her like the ways of the world because she seemed to be very ignorant. She doesn't know how to speak initially.
She is the Little Mermaid.
She is, yeah, she is the Little Mermaid. And a good chunk of it revolves around the main character of Hibiki becoming closer and closer to Uta. And, like, you see that there's, like, this almost pseudo-romance forming between them. And then, like, by the midpoint, the fucking pacing accelerates to fucking light speed. You have all these things happening all at once, and then they're like, okay, we have a goal, let's go, and then it's just done.
And like I don't know, it's weird because their relationship, I think it's built up pretty well to a certain point. Like there's I think the best thing in the movie is after there's like this very emotional sort of like exchange between the two, and like he's like totally open up to her, and they have there's this one scene of them, both of them just parkouring. There's no dialogue in that scene. It's just like guided and motivated by the music, and it's the best thing in the movie. It's fantastic. I love it so much. It's like
I agree.
It's great. It's great. For this scene alone, I would recommend watching the movie. And that happens right after like a sort of a conflict is being resolved with other groups in this world. But yeah, the moment that ends, like it just like the movie just sprints towards its climax, and it's like it just kind of not really in a not really satisfying manner, you know. It just happens. It's like, oh, okay, like the climax just happens. That's the thing. There is some foreshadowing to things happening
almost out of nowhere.
Yeah, like there's like they build up towards a sort of climax with her character, you know, like her disposition or whatever, and I'm fine with that. But then like the sort of like climax of the world, I suppose, to some extent, like the bigger like moment of the movie, it just happens, and it's like, okay, I guess we're doing this, and it's like like honestly I would have preferred if the movie like didn't like I would prefer if like the quote unquote more action packed climax of the movie wasn't a thing, and it was just like leading up to like an emotional climax with her character, you know. Without
I
that,
agree.
I think it would have been
I 100%
way
agree.
better.
Yeah. And you know, maybe it did need more time to actually develop its ending and develop some of that some of the other characters in the movie itself, because I feel like there were a lot of the other secondary characters that got almost no development whatsoever. They just seem to be there to fill the space.
I mean, I don't know. It just I really don't know. It's just kind of like they're there.
Well, it kind of brings me to like, you know, summarizing my thoughts on this. Like, I wanted to like this movie far more than I did. And leading up to the release of this movie, something that John kept saying is that he thought that this movie had too many cooks in the kitchen. And I feel like maybe that's the case, especially with the writing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's too many cooks. I'm just like very, very confused about like, so again, there are like 3 different writers here, and I'm wondering like to what level of involvement all of them had. And maybe Gen Bucci only pitched the story, maybe I'm wrong, maybe all of them worked collaboratively on this movie,
or maybe it's like Al Noah Zero, he only wrote the first 15 minutes and everyone else wrote the other stuff.
Honestly, like we don't know, but it doesn't feel like it's Like I really like Genrobuchi. I think it's a great writer, and this one, like I don't know, this one feels like it doesn't have this sort of like the edge, this sort of like extra that Genrobuchi has in most of his scripts. I don't know. It just doesn't feel as like sharp as his other scripts.
It doesn't, and like you, it makes me seriously wonder exactly how much involvement he had in the writing. I mean, obviously, even the best have their fumbles, and maybe this is just one of his fumbles. I don't know. I still generally recommend stuff written by Gen Urobuchi, though.
Yeah, he's great. Go watch Madoka Magica and Fate Zero, for instance. It's great.
And like I said, I really wanted to like this more than I did, but if I had to give this a rating, I give it a 6 out of 10. Like visually and soundtrack wise, very stunning, but it really drops the ball when it comes to its story.
Yeah, it's like at the end of the day, I enjoyed my time with it. Again, it's a very quick watch. It's enjoyable, and I think its highs are like pretty good. Like they're really, they're good. Like again. Let me watch that parkour all day and the two leads just interacting with each other. I'm like, yeah, I'll be happy about it.
If you're looking for something that you don't have to think too hard about and you just want to have some escapism and just go with it or have something on in the back, go do it. Bubble is good.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
For that.
It's only
but if you're looking,
1 hour and 30 minutes. Yeah.
If you're looking for an anime movie that has a little more substance to its story, you're probably going to want to look elsewhere.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. Unfortunately. It just pretty much.
And that's it. That's our review of Bubble. Not the Bubble, just Bubble.
Like a bubble, it was short-lived and it burst at the end.
And it burst.
Bam!
Bam! Let us know below what you thought of Bubble. If you have watched it. If you agree with us, if you disagree with us. The next time we get together for a movie review, I am the one that's choosing it, and I have chosen to review A Whisker Away. So
time for some cats.
Yeah. I know there are a couple people in our Discord server who have said the last couple of movies that I, in particular, have chosen to review have been somewhat heavy and depressing. So I wanted to go with something a little more light.
Yeah, right. Redline was so depressing.
Did I choose Redline? I did choose Redline.
It was you, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me set the record straight, because I wasn't. Redline is a masterpiece, a 10 out of 10 that will outlive all of us. It's fucking great.
I don't think it's a 10 out of 10, but I definitely think it's worth watching and very good.
It's a 10 out of 10. Fucking fight me.
But anyway, go watch our Redline review to figure that out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Whisper Away. A Whisker Away.
Oh, Whisper Away. Is that the triple X version?
Oh my god. Anyway. So thank you all there for dropping in to listen to us talk about Bubble. Check the description below to find links to Anime Club After Dark on Twitch, on social media, and on Discord. We have a merch store, which you can check out below as well. Any purchases you make there do really, really help us out. With that, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, and it's I.
Good night.
Gotta go pop that bubble.
Damn, boy.